Peter, welcome. Got a question for Jimmy?
Hi, yes, thank you so much.
Sure.
My question is, can the love of your child or spouse ever rightly compel a person to deprioritize their own salvation or relationship with God, or willingly risking or surrendering it in order to secure the good of the one they love, even their spiritual good? And to be clear, I'm not talking about if sin is justified or something like that. A more deeper question is, can Catholicism make space for this kind of radical self-giving love? As seen like by Moses and Paul, and for the sake of their children and spouse.
Okay, Peter, I had a little difficulty hearing you. It seemed like there was some kind of clicking or cutting out going on there, but I think I got the essence of the question. And the essence is one can love one's spouse or children or others in such a way that one takes risks in life. However, there's a fundamental equality between all people, and so one person's salvation is as valuable as another's, and it would be a mistake to prioritize someone else's salvation over one's own. Our fundamental obligations as established by God are to start, with caring for ourselves and then for other people based on their degree of relationship to us. And that kicks in most firmly in regard to salvation. Your ultimate responsibility is to see to your own salvation, because you're the only person who has ultimate control over that. You don't have direct control over your spouse's salvation or your children's salvation or anything like that. The only person that you have direct control over their salvation is yourself. And so that's what we all need to be principally concerned with. Then there's a question of what goods are being balanced here. Now, one can love one's spouse and children and want to provide good things for them. Like, let's say, in the case of your children, you want to provide them with a college education. Well, college educations are good things. Those are good things to provide for one's children, but it's not as important as your own salvation. What happens in this life, whatever benefits are achieved in this life, are for this life. They're finite in nature. They are not of infinite value the way eternal salvation is. So if you're risking your own eternal salvation in order to give your children a college education, that's a bad trade-off. The salvation of your own soul is more important than being able to give a college education to your children. On the other hand, let's suppose we're comparing equals. Let's suppose we're comparing your own salvation versus the salvation of your children. Well, here, you're at least dealing with things that are on the same level, because your salvation is the same in value as the salvation of a child. And so regardless of the age of the child, whether they're small or grown up, it doesn't matter. Because our lives, whatever our finite age is finite, and there's still an infinite future ahead of us. So they're equal in value. So we'd at least be in the ballpark of where it could potentially make sense to take some risks, in order to try to provide eternal salvation for your children. Let's suppose you have, I'm just making up an example here, but let's suppose that your daughter is in a brothel and you need to get her out of that brothel in order to promote her eternal salvation. And that means you need to walk through the brothel in order to get her, even though that's going to expose you to some degree of temptation. Well, okay, that would be a risk that could be acceptable. It could be acceptable to expose yourself to some degree of temptation, especially with the intent of, I'm going to resist all this temptation, and if I fall, I'm going to repent afterwards. But you could still undertake that risk in order to provide a greater chance of salvation for your daughter. That would be one example. What would not be acceptable is saying, I'm going to be okay with going to hell in order to try to help someone else get to heaven. We see the unacceptability of this in an expression that Paul uses in Romans chapter 9, where St. Paul says he could wish that he himself were cut off from Christ and cursed for the sake of the Jewish people. He could wish that, but he knows that's going too far. So he, in fact, doesn't wish that. God does not want us to pit our salvation against somebody else's. And so it would be a mistake for Paul to say, hey, God, thank you for all the grace you've given me, but I'll just go to hell if you'll save Israel. God does not want these two things pitted against each other in that way. He wants a both-and solution where both Paul and the Israelites get saved. And so Paul should not be willing to just accept damnation in order to help someone else get to heaven. And in the same way, we should not be willing to just accept our own damnation to help someone else get to heaven. We want everybody, including ourselves, to be in union with God, which is to say in union with the source of love, and be together in heaven in love. So while it can be understandable on a human level to have such natural affection for people, that we're very concerned for their salvation, the same way Paul is describing here in Romans 9, it would be going too far to literally say, oh, yeah, I'm just willing to accept damnation for the sake of someone else. That is not God's will. He wants us to work for the salvation of everybody, including ourselves.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the question and getting us started today, Peter.